The year is roughly 33 AD. On a dusty hill in Galilee, a carpenter turned Messiah gives a final echoing command. Go, make disciples of all nations. It was the Great Commission, a mandate of boundless hope. But beneath that hope lay a terrible unspoken contract. These men, fishermen, tax collectors, zealots, were not just called to preach, they were called to die. This is the untold story of the 12, a story not of miracles, but of murder. Of the original 12 apostles chosen by Christ, only one would live to see a natural old age. The rest were executed with a brutality that seems fictional, yet is meticulously recorded in the blood-stained archives of history, tradition, and apocryphal legends. Their deaths weren't accidents. They were the deliberate, savage counterpunch from the Roman, Persian, and Jewish establishment fighting the virus of a new faith. We believe we know these men. We know their names from the Gospels. But the true question is, do we know the cost they paid? Do we know the specific, agonizing methods used to silence them? To understand the birth of Christianity, you must trace the map of their final, terrifying moments. It is a map drawn in fire, stone, and the blade of an executioner. This is the forbidden history of martyrdom. The foundation of the entire church rests on a fisherman named Simon, renamed Peter, the Rock. His journey was a 30-year dash from Galilee to the epicenter of imperial power, Rome. It was in the capital of the world, under the mad reign of Emperor Nero, that Peter's contract with death was fulfilled. Peter preached relentlessly, founding a formidable Christian community directly beneath the nose of the Caesars. This audacity, coupled with the fire that consumed Rome in 64 AD, a tragedy Nero conveniently blamed on the Christians, sealed his fate. He was captured, sentenced to the quintessential Roman death, crucifixion. But Peter, bearing the memory of his 3-time denial of Christ, made a final, powerful request recorded by the early church father Origen. He deemed himself unworthy to die in the same manner as his Lord. His executioners granted his wish, not as an act of mercy, but perhaps a final humiliation. They dragged him to the Mons Vaticanus, Vatican Hill, and affixed him to the cross, head down. The upside-down cross, a gruesome inversion, became the symbol of his final humility and ultimate sacrifice. Peter died, looking at the ground he felt unworthy to walk upon, a martyr in the heart of the empire. Beside Peter, another giant fell, Paul of Tarsus. Unlike Peter, Paul was a Roman citizen, a fact that afforded him a rare, privileged demise. He could not be crucified, a punishment reserved for slaves and non-citizens. His sentence was decapitation, a quicker, cleaner death. Paul's head fell under the sword, but his theology, his letters, his tireless missionary journeys were already an immortal legacy. Now we must speak of the 13th man, the anti-apostle, Judas Iscariot. His end, though self-inflicted, was the beginning of the apostles' terror. The Gospels offered 2 accounts. Matthew says he hanged himself out of remorse. The book of Acts says he bought a field with his blood money, and there he, quote, burst open in the middle and all his bowels gushed out. Both accounts agree on one fundamental truth. The wages of betrayal is a death filled with horror and regret.
Peter and Paul, the cornerstones laid in blood. But the empire's thirst was not quenched. One was inverted, one was cleaved. Now the surviving 10 scatter like fragments of glass. Their destination? The ends of the known world, and their fate even more barbaric.
The death of the pillars in Rome signaled the true beginning of the Great Dispersion. The remaining apostles fled the west, turning their focus toward the volatile borderlands of the east, Greece, Asia Minor, and Persia. First among these was Andrew, Peter's brother. He took his message across Greece, landing in Patras. His downfall came when he converted Maximilla, the wife of the Roman governor Aegeus. This act of spiritual rebellion brought the fury of Rome crashing down upon him. Aegeus ordered Andrew to be crucified. But again, Andrew demanded a unique cross, a symbol of his mission. He was bound, not nailed, to a diagonal cross shaped like the letter X, known later as the crux decussata, bound so that his suffering would be prolonged. Legend claims Andrew hung on that cross for 2 full days, not in silence, but preaching continuously to the crowds gathered below. His final sermon was a defiant testament to his faith, ultimately converting many onlookers. He was finally removed from the cross, only to die shortly after. Next, James the Greater, son of Zebedee. James was perhaps the apostle least suited for the long, grueling mission. He was a man of immediate action, once nicknamed a son of thunder by Christ himself. His end was swift and decisive, a sharp contrast to his brethren. He returned to Jerusalem and became such a powerful, outspoken preacher that he drew the direct attention of King Herod Agrippa I. In 44 A.D., Herod, seeking to consolidate his political standing with the Jewish authorities, ordered James's execution. James became the first apostle to be martyred. He was simply executed by the sword, decapitated. A quick, clinical assassination, a political warning, making his death arguably the most businesslike of the 12, devoid of the complex theological theater surrounding Peter or Andrew. Finally, Philip. Philip took his ministry to Phrygia, modern-day Turkey. He was known for his blunt, effective preaching. But in the city of Hierapolis, his defiance of local pagan customs, specifically a serpent-worshipping cult, led to his arrest. Like Peter, he was crucified, but tradition holds his executioners added an extra layer of cruelty. While hanging on the cross, he was subjected to brutal stoning. Philip's death marked the end of the second wave of apostles, men who died close to the cultural epicenters of the time. The remaining apostles, however, would have to travel further, into territories ruled not by Rome, but by myth. Their suffering would escalate. The X of Andrew, the swift blade for James, the stones for Philip. Their blood watered the soil of the Hellenic world, but the true brutality was reserved for the men who ventured into the shadows of the Persian and Indian empires. Who was the apostle flayed alive, and who carried the message to a continent no one dared to name? The deepest mysteries lie ahead. We are halfway through this bloody map of faith. If the sheer intensity of these apostles' final stand, from Peter's inverted cross to the swift blade of James, has given you a new perspective on history, then now is the time to ensure you don't miss the rest of the journey. Take a moment right now, hit that subscribe button, and ring the notification bell. You are witnessing the truth that institutions have kept hidden for 2 millennia. Your support helps us pull back the curtain on these forbidden histories. Let's continue. The brutal truth of the Eastern apostles awaits. We now turn our gaze to the East, the true frontier of early Christianity, where the apostles faced not the organized, legalistic violence of Rome, but the chaotic, savage rage of regional warlords and ancient cults. Bartholomew, often identified with Nathanael, took the gospel to Armenia and India. His name is synonymous with perhaps the most shocking and visceral death of all the apostles. In Albanus, Armenia, he preached to King Polemius, successfully converting the king and 12 surrounding cities. This conversion infuriated the king's brother, Astyages, a zealous pagan priest. Astyages ordered Bartholomew to be seized, not merely killed, but tortured in a manner designed to strip him of his identity and his life simultaneously. He was sentenced to be flayed alive. The process involved professional executioners slowly peeling the skin from his body, muscle and tendon exposed, layer by excruciating layer. The tradition states he endured this unspeakable agony before finally being beheaded. The flaying of Bartholomew remains the ultimate symbol of the persecution's cruelty, an act of pure, visceral horror. Contrast this with Thomas, the doubter. His mission was arguably the most extraordinary, documented in the Acts of Thomas, a journey that led him not just to Persia, but all the way to India. He is credited with founding the community of the St. Thomas Christians on the Malabar coast. His mission ended in Mylapore, near modern-day Chennai. His preaching clashed with the Brahmins, the high priests of the local Hindu temple. They saw his influence as a spiritual threat and devised a plan. Thomas was challenged by a king named Mazday. Legend holds that in 72 A.D., Thomas was taken to a hill where he was run through with a spear by 4 soldiers commanded by the Brahmins. His journey, which had started with skepticism, ended with a definitive physical proof of his belief. Matthew, the former tax collector, found his path leading to Ethiopia. After writing his gospel, which focused on the lineage and kingship of Christ, he traveled south. In the city of Nadaba, his confrontational stance against the local pagan king, specifically the king's incestuous relationship, became his death warrant. Matthew was not granted the dignity of a cross or a civic execution. He was stabbed to death with a halberd or a sword while celebrating the Mass, the ultimate insult to the very worship he sought to establish. Flayed in Armenia, speared in India, sworded in Ethiopia. 3 men, 3 continents, united by a singular, gruesome purpose, their elimination. Yet 2 men still remain. The one whose death was a political message, and the one whose survival defined the entire mission. The tension builds toward the one who died naturally. The final apostles met their end closer to the foundational city of Jerusalem, their deaths often driven by Jewish authorities intent on crushing the sect at its birthplace. James the Lesser, often identified as the brother of Christ, became the first bishop of Jerusalem, a crucial role in bridging the early Jewish Christians with the burgeoning Gentile church.
His moral authority was so profound that even non-Christians respected him, earning him the nickname James the Just. But his popularity and influence became a threat to the Jewish religious establishment, especially the high priest Ananus II. In 62 AD, Ananus seized a moment of political vacuum, taking advantage of a change in Roman governors, and ordered James' execution. James was taken to the pinnacle of the temple, ordered to deny Christ. When he refused, he was thrown down to the ground below. Miraculously, he survived the fall. He then rose to his knees and, like Christ, began praying for his executioners. Infuriated, a launderer in the crowd grabbed his heavy fulling club, a large wooden bat used for beating clothes, and repeatedly struck James in the head until he died. His martyrdom was a chaotic, mob-driven murder, a symbol of the utter rejection of Christ by the Jerusalem elite. The final duo, Simon the Zealot and Jude Thaddeus, often traveled together to the Persian Empire. The most accepted tradition states that their end came in the city of Sunir. Their aggressive evangelism led to them being seized by the local priests of the sun god. In a dramatic, symbolic gesture, the two men were executed side by side. Jude Thaddeus was killed first, his head split open by a heavy axe or polearm. Simon the Zealot's death was prolonged and horrific. Tradition claims he was sawn in half, a brutal, protracted execution that speaks to the final desperate cruelty leveled against these preachers. This leaves only one, John, the beloved disciple, the one who leaned on Christ's breast at the Last Supper. He traveled to Ephesus, where he wrote his gospel. He became the sole survivor of the apostolic college. The Roman Emperor Domitian, enraged by John's influence, attempted to eliminate him. Tradition holds that John was placed in a vat of boiling oil in Rome, but miraculously emerged unharmed. He was exiled to the desolate island of Patmos, where he received the visions that became the Book of Revelation, the apocalyptic capstone to the New Testament. John was eventually released and returned to Ephesus, where he died peacefully in his old age, the only one to fulfill the natural lifespan of a man. His survival is the great anomaly, a final powerful proof of divine intervention and a living link back to the very moment of the Incarnation. The historical landscape of the early church is paved with the bones of 11 men: crucifixion, beheading, flaying, the spear, the club, the saw, the axe. Each death was a unique, brutal signature, a definitive answer to the question of commitment. They were not abstract figures on stained glass. They were real men, hunted and murdered. But their deaths were not a failure. They were the ultimate commission. The Roman Empire attempted to extinguish the faith with fire and iron. Yet, in a profound paradox, every drop of blood spilled became the seed of the church. The brutal map of their martyrdom is, in fact, the precise map of the church's expansion. Peter to Rome, Andrew to Greece, Thomas to India. The forbidden history is the definitive history. It shows that faith is not a gentle idea. It is a battle for the soul of the world, a battle fought and won by men who understood that the ultimate act of belief is the ultimate act of sacrifice. Their final moments were not their end, but the thunderous, violent beginning of the Christian era.
We have laid bare the forgotten history of sacrifice. Now, we turn the question to you. Which apostle's death, from Bartholomew's flaying to James the Lesser's beating, did you find the most shocking? Tell us in the comments below. Your insights fuel this research.
The apostles' deaths
secured their heavenly crown, what became of the earthly powers that ordered their executions? History often records a chilling, almost poetic justice for the persecutors. Emperor Nero, the man who crucified Peter and beheaded Paul, was declared an enemy of the people by the Roman Senate. He fled, and with his last breath, he committed suicide, reportedly crying out, "Qualis artifex pereo?" What an artist dies in me. A desperate, ignominious end for the emperor who sought to burn Rome and Christianity to the ground. Herod Agrippa I, who ordered the quick assassination of James the Greater, met an equally horrific fate. According to the book of Acts, while accepting praise that he was a god, he was struck down by an angel of the Lord and eaten by worms, a grotesque and sudden divine judgment. And Ananus II, the high priest who illegally ordered the stoning and beating of James the Lesser, was deposed shortly after by the Roman governor Albinus. His political ambition and life stripped from him by the very authority he sought to impress. The persecutors sought permanence through power. The apostles achieved immortality through sacrifice. The blood of the martyrs indeed had the final word.
We are halfway through this bloody map of faith. If the sheer intensity of these apostles' final stand, from Peter's inverted cross to the swift blade of James, has given you a new perspective on history, then now is the time to ensure you don't miss the rest of the journey. Take a moment right now, hit that subscribe button, and ring the notification bell. You are witnessing the truth that institutions have kept hidden for 2 millennia. Your support helps us pull back the curtain on these forbidden histories. Let's continue. The brutal truth of the Eastern apostles awaits.